Howdy, it's Jim Arado, and this is the middle of November 2023, and I've said it before many times. We are in the Kennesaw Mountain area slash Marietta, Georgia area. I just love this neck of the woods. And it was still the middle of November, but it felt very much like October still. The leaves were still looking great. Little chill in the air, but it wasn't wintry. Just a really pleasant time to be in this area. And to me, you get a little north of Atlanta, going up through eastern Tennessee. This is just such a great area. This is one of my favorite places to go to and see Civil War sites, or just to drive around. Just really nice areas, nice places to see. And as you can see right there on the right, we are pulling in to the Kennesaw Mountain National Battlefield Park Visitor Center. Had some construction going on there. And I think I've put up a video on that before. So we're going to kind of skip that. That is the first stop on the driving tour. If you're doing the National Park driving tour, they have a nice little guide they'll give you, and it gives you a seven stop driving tour to understand the battle. And that's a very that 7 stops, that's a good way to do this. That's not too much. It's not overwhelming if you're not real familiar with the battle. It's a good way just to kind of put things in order. So we're going to do that driving tour. We do skip over one stop. In fact, I think I missed a turn, and I'll mention it as we're driving. But there's one stop that we kind of miss. But we still drive up Kennesaw Mountain. That's what we're doing right now. You may notice, I know there were a couple of joggers that we saw at the top, that we'd see them again going towards the bottom. There are some in-shape people in this area that walk and bike up this hill and then make their way down again. In fact, I want to say we even see her later on up the mountain. But yeah, there are some people. Man, this hill would I'd have a tough time hiking this one for sure. Anyway, I'm mostly going to be just chatting about the area, a little bit about the battle here and there. This is a fascinating and just a really interesting battle. Lots going on with it. Some of the more interesting characters of the Civil War played a part in it. I do have a blue and gray magazine from June 1989 that I read and took notes in before our trip. Still love blue and gray magazine. It went defunct, 7, 8, 9 years ago now. And I've actually accumulated a lot of back issues of it. It's a great magazine. It's very sad that it is no longer published. They put it out about 4 times a year. Each issue would cover a separate battle. Of course, Gettysburg, Chattanooga, Atlanta. They had multiple issues. Oh, look at that dog. Multiple issues were devoted to different, kind of smaller battles and different nuances of those conflicts. But just a great magazine. And I've went through and bought some old back issues on eBay. Some of the national park units will still sell reprint issues, and that's great. It's a great magazine. Each individual issue is the equivalent of a very thorough book on the battle, and there's usually a really nice, very thorough driving tour in it. And of course, things change. Those driving tours, especially with the National Battlefield Trust, more land gets acquired. There's more to see at a lot of parks, thank goodness. Franklin, Tennessee, of course, comes to mind. Over the last decade or two, they have really put things back together in a town and a battlefield that was just about lost to progress. Anyway, just wanted to mention Blue and Gray magazine. And again, we're driving up Kennesaw Mountain. We'll go up here, we'll go to the top, and then you can kind of hike up it a little further. Once you walk up towards, kind of the top area of Kennesaw Mountain, you can actually look out. You can even see Stone Mountain, Georgia from here. I don't have a video up of that, but I've been there before. I did hike up to the top of that on a probably 95-degree day wearing jeans. I had not planned to hike that mountain, but I got there and I wanted to do it. That was a dumb idea. Stone Mountain, though, of course, famous for basically being the Confederacy's Mount Rushmore. Whole story to that, if you want to look that up, if you're not familiar with it. Of course, Jefferson Davis, Stonewall Jackson, Robert E. Lee engraved on the side of the mountain. A couple of just real quick thoughts about this battle. Kennesaw Mountain is actually 3 mountains: Big Kennesaw, Little Kennesaw, Pigeon Hill. Kennesaw named, the name is kind of a mystery. U.S. troops spread a rumor that it was from a Cherokee chief killed there. Rain and unusual weather affected the U.S.'s Federals' efforts to hide. They were easy to spot from the mountaintop. Again, Georgia, Chattanooga. Hills are a good place to be during a battle. The Confederacy was still fairly formal at this point. General Sherman was more casual. This battle is also known for the death of Leonidas Polk, the Reverend, the Confederate. Very interesting character. Probably one of the more interesting people in the Civil War, just as far as characters go. And yeah, he was the second cousin of the former President Polk, who'd been president, I don't know, a decade or so earlier before the Civil War, which that's just kind of interesting. He did not have the best track record as far as command goes, but he was exceptionally popular with his soldiers. And a bit of a dispute about how he was killed. The Sherman and some of his command were looking, and they actually saw some CSA command kind of looking at a distance away from them, and the Federals fired. Somebody hit Polk and killed him. A bit of a dispute about who that was. It was probably some boys from Indiana, may have been some guys from Pennsylvania, but that's a rabbit hole to go down if you're a Civil War person. Just always fascinating when it comes to Polk. Of course, Sherman was proud to announce that they had taken Polk out. And I did read an interesting quote. Military historian, this is from Wikipedia, Stephen Woodworth, described the shell that killed Polk as one of the worst shots fired for the Union cause during the entire course of the war, since Polk's incompetence made him far more valuable alive than dead. And then he goes on to say Polk's incompetence and willful disobedience had consistently hamstrung Confederate operations west of the Appalachians, while his special relationship with the president made the bishop general untouchable. That's definitely an argument to think about. And check things out up here, man. It's so freaking pretty. Just a great place to go. People were obviously hiking up here. We passed several people that were just out getting their exercise, and that was fun. Great views up here too, by the way. And a couple of other names that come up in this battle. I mentioned Polk, second cousin of the president. You also had future president Harrison involved in this battle. Butterfield, Dan Butterfield, famous for coming up with taps, was involved in this one too. Just a couple things to think about. The Georgia governor called for state militia to help out called them into active duty, which was pretty much made up of young boys and men over 40, as everybody else was already serving. The South was desperate for people. After the war, Confederate Frank Cheatham endorsed Jack Daniel's whiskey. Just an interesting little note I picked up on. Confederate William Martin called for a truce so the U.S. could get their men. And that's one of the things about this battle. I won't get too much into it, even though it's a really interesting fact. There was a truce called so that the two armies could come out and clean up their dead from the field. And that's really moving video they show in the visitor center, or they used to. I haven't watched the video in several years. But yeah, there was that lady. We saw her down at the bottom earlier. Man, she is moving with her little baby. So yeah, there was a truce called so they could clean up the battlefield of dead. And that's a whole nother story just in its own. But wanted to read, I hope they don't mind, just a part of a paragraph from my Blue and Gray magazine about this moment. Colonel William Martin, commander of the 1st and 15th Consolidated Arkansas Regiment, shouted for the Confederates to cease fire. He called for the Yankees to come and get their men. For a brief time, Northerners and Southerners alike went out to drag the threatened men to safety. The Confederates also rescued as many Union weapons as they could pick up. The following day, during a truce, Union officers gave Colonel Martin a pair of Colt 6-shooters in recognition for his truly gallant deed. Man. Whew. It's just kind of heavy, giving the enemy a token of gratitude like that. And there was one more story from one of the moments of truce during this battle that got to me, again from my Blue and Gray magazine, talking about General Cheatham. He wore nothing but a rough pair of gray pants tucked under the tops of an unpolished pair of boots. A blue flannel shirt, rough felt hat completed his attire. Whitney added that Cheatham did not have on a coat or vest, and there was nothing to indicate his rank. The informal attire fooled at least one Yankee, an Irishman, who assumed that Cheatham was a private. The Federal brashly poked Cheatham in the ribs and asked Old Frank for a drink from his canteen. When Cheatham obliged, the Irishman felt so friendly that he tried to put his arms around the general's neck. At this point, Colonel Horace Rice of the 29th Tennessee felt compelled to reveal Cheatham's identity. A 40-pound shot thrown in their midst would not have produced a greater sensation than did this announcement, recalled an eyewitness. Instantly, all eyes were fixed upon the old hero, added the veteran. But after their momentary astonishment, a crowd of Northerners gathered and presented autograph books for Cheatham and Hinman to sign. How interesting is that? I mean, you've got, a Yankee foot soldier basically drinking out of the canteen of, a high-ranking Confederate, and then you've got Northerners asking for autographs. And I just, again, the Civil War. And of course, one of the famous friendships post-war, you had Johnston with the CSA and General Sherman become besties later on, and I think they had a mutual respect from this great conflict, or this great battle here in Georgia. So yeah, just a couple of thoughts as we drive around. And by the way, some very nice houses down here. This is just such a beautiful area. And also just a little bit to give you from a small brochure I got at the National Park. June 1864, William Sherman's advance towards Atlanta was delayed for 2 weeks at Kennesaw Mountain by Confederates under General Joseph E. Johnston. Since early May, in a fiercely contested campaign, Sherman had been moving south through northwest Georgia. June 19, 1864, Johnston's Confederates entrenched along the ridgetop of Big and Little Kennesaw Mountain, south towards Powder Springs Road, blocking Union movement. To break the development stalemate on June 27th, Sherman attacked Cheatham Hill and Pigeon Hill, 2 points he felt were vulnerable. The unsuccessful attack produced 3,000 casualties, mainly at Cheatham Hill. Heavy losses there led the Union soldiers to call this the Dead Angle. By the way, we're at stop number 4 now. This is kind of the parking area for Pigeon Hill. I believe we missed stop number 3, which pretty much a gun emplacement. But stop number 4, Pigeon Hill. A trail leads to Confederate entrenchments on this mountain spur, where one of Sherman's 2 major attacks was repulsed. We did not do the little hike. Kind of went out and just looked at the hill. Some nice signage there. Yeah, there's where everything was going on, I believe. And just real quickly from one of the markers, yeah, that one right there. Assault on Pigeon Hill. Union attackers failed to split the Confederate Army here. On the morning of June 27th, 1864, 3 brigades totaling 5,500 soldiers from Ohio, Indiana, and Illinois charged towards Pigeon Hill, advancing in battle lines astride Burnt Hickory Road. 1 Union brigade overran the Georgian-held rifle pits near this location, while 2 other brigades crossed Old Mountain Road. Once beyond the road, the attack ran into felled trees and other Confederate-built obstacles on Pigeon Hill. As the Federals struggled over the obstacles and rough terrain, the well-entrenched Southerners opened fire with musketry and cannon. Some Confederates on Little Kennesaw even heaved boulders. The Union troops sought cover as the assault crumbled. Alright, and now we're on to stop number 5, which to me is one of the most interesting stops on any Civil War tour. As I'm looking over the brochure from the National Park, they mention Federal and Confederate leadership. Confederate Joseph E. Johnston frustrated William Sherman's attempts to outmaneuver him. Johnston's failure to stop the Federals, however, caused Jefferson Davis to replace him with General John Bell Hood, who fought hard to save Atlanta. But yeah, you were kind of getting towards the end of the war, and man, Hood, guy from Kentucky, fought like a madman. But at this point in the battle, he only had a couple of limbs still working and or attached to him, and he was pretty much held together with duct tape at that point. But he still gave it the old try. Anyway, yeah, coming up on stop number 5 here, and we're driving to stop number 5, and then we're gonna take a little walk and go out to see a couple of things, including the Illinois Monument at the Dead Angle, and you'll see that here shortly. Again, we'll take a walk. You'll see some nice markers, and feel free to pause and look at those. Also some earthworks, again from my issue of Blue and Gray magazine. The Illinois Monument at the Dead Angle on Cheatham Hill. Survivors of Colonel Daniel McCook's brigade, who had participated in 9 major battles during the war, chose the Dead Angle at Kennesaw for their brigade memorial because here they suffered greatest. The brigade, which attacked here with 3 Illinois regiments and 1 each from Indiana and Ohio, lost 397 men in a half-hour struggle, including Colonel McCook and his successor, Colonel Oscar F. Harmon, both mortally wounded or dead on the field. The survivors purchased 60 acres over which they had attacked and donated the ground to the state of Illinois for the erection of the monument, which was funded by the state and dedicated June 27, 1914, on the 50th anniversary of the battle. In the foreground is the entrance of a tunnel, you'll see the tunnel here in a moment, intended to extend under the Confederate position, then packed with explosives to be blown on the 4th of July. The armies moved on, however, before the project was completed. The area here is part of the blind spot not covered by fire from the Confederates' mislocated entrenchments. Many of the Yankees spent 6 days crouched along this dubious safe harbor within 30 yards of the enemy line. Yeah, and there's the Illinois Monument right there. Kind of up in front of it to the right is that tunnel that I mentioned. And I'll try to, and there's the dead angle. There's where it was going on. And I know there's, we look at where Dan McCook fell. Yeah, there's a little info on him, I believe. Boy from Steubenville, Ohio. My wife is from that neck of the woods, and I don't care what I'm researching, Steubenville comes up in everything. If I'm looking up baseball, if I'm looking up anything in history, Steubenville is going to come up. And just real quick, one more note about him before I leave McCook. Wikipedia notes that just before the attack, he calmly recited to his men the stanza from Thomas Macaulay's poem Horatius, beginning, "Then how may men die better than facing fearful odds?" And a very quick look at that tunnel. I stuck my head in there a moment ago to give you a view of that crazy tunnel too, just so you can check that out. And the last two stops we make kind of quick. Very, very nice little pull-offs here, by the way. And you know, here with this national park, you kind of pull off. There'd be some signs, and then there might be a short little walk to see what you needed to see. I kind of liked that. And then we're about to take a very short walk over to the Thomas headquarters. General Sherman and Thomas met here to discuss and ultimately order an ill-fated frontal assault against Confederate General William Hardee's troops entrenched atop Cheatham Hill. And that's where we were just at a moment ago. Just nice little pan around look, looking at what's here in this area. You walk up a little hill and there's some signage, kind of giving you an idea of what was here at the time of the battle. And yeah, right there, that was the location. And they kind of have some good interpretation there. I kind of enjoyed that. Right off of the road, our parking spot just over to the left. Very easy to access this area. Gonna go to Culp's Farm next. On the afternoon of June 22nd, 1864, Federal soldiers repulsed Confederate General Hood's ill-fated attack just north of Powder Springs Road. General Joseph Hooker used the Kolb House as his headquarters after the fight. The Kolb family cemetery is adjacent to the house. And there you are. That's what we're looking at right there. And the actual house there, I believe, is now used by the National Park Service. And that pretty much completes our kind of brief drive around the Kennesaw Mountain National Battlefield. Wonderful area, lots to do near here. Just one of my favorite spots on the planet. What do you think? Have you been here? Let me know what you think. Thanks.